Chapter 3: Research Design and Methodology. Research Data. Once I received Institutional Review Board (IRB) approval to conduct the autoethnography study, I created an outline of the projects that the students completed during the study's timeline. As a part of the outline, we reflected on instances of self-efficacy and divergent thinking for each project, level of DOK, and Bloom's taxonomy that the students use in our education with creative learning principles. Throughout the autoethnography, I gave personal experiences of observations that responded to the following research questions. What teaching experiences and observations do I, as an art teacher, have in cultivating student self-efficacy when incorporating art education with creative learning principles? What teaching experiences and observations do I, as an art teacher, have in cultivating students' divergent thinking when incorporating art education with creative learning principles? As I outlined the organization of the class, I gave instances of students that appeared to be struggling to cultivate either self-efficacy or divergent thinking, and then gave my personal account of how I addressed students that were struggling or made changes to the class to cultivate student self-efficacy and divergent thinking. I gave my experiences as an art teacher as to what makes this art education with creative learning principles class different from traditional art education classes. Many of these stories are about how the art class's organization, classroom management, and classroom structure cultivated student self-efficacy and divergent thinking. Many of these stories are about experiences I had with students and creating a safe classroom environment that would cultivate self-efficacy and divergent thinking. These experiences focus on the voice of the art teacher and how this class is designed to cultivate self-efficacy and divergent thinking. Data collection. Data collection of the autoethnographic study comprised of rich, thick descriptions from the researchers' observations of student self-efficacy and divergent thinking before and after students were introduced to art education with creative learning principles. Field notes, memos, observations, and personal experiences were coded by the researcher to determine patterns and themes. The teacher will keep reflections from observations that are dated in the field notes to recall experiences. Data analysis. The researcher used thematic analysis in the qualitative autoethnographic study for data analysis. Thematic analysis allows for underlying factors that impact students' creative self-efficacy and divergent thinking to be identified and then examined. The researcher used coding to examine if experiences of the teacher have changed during the duration of the study by comparing observations of students at the beginning and end of the study. Thematic coding examined how experiences varied from observing students that are enrolled in classes and students that are not enrolled in art classes. Deductive and inductive coding was implemented by the researcher to ensure that patterns are coded. Deductive and inductive coding allowed the researcher to code for themes that were not anticipated in the research to occur before the study. The researcher used semiotic analysis to identify how and why students use specific visual signs and linguistic signs. Tracking the students' use of semiotic analysis with memos assisted in determining how students have cultivated characteristics of self-efficacy through the implementation of elements of art, principles of design, and art terminology. The researcher used field notes to assist in identifying patterns of self-efficacy and divergent thinking during the observations. While observing students, patterns were determined based on the interactions with students. These field notes will allow readers to have insight of how art education has impacted students through the researcher's perspective. Validity and trustworthiness. The strategies that were used to enhance trustworthiness include crystallization, thick descriptions, prolonged engagement, member checking, peer review, an audit trail, and clarification of the researcher's bias. Thick descriptions were used to accurately depict participants and the ideas that the individuals observed would like to convey. Prolonged engagement allowed to understand the language and culture of the participants fully. Prolonged engagement created rapport with the participants. Prolonged engagement increased the probability for the students to trust the researcher to give the researcher genuine observations. Member checking allowed the participants to review the study to ensure that the participants can change or modify any information that they might have shared. The researcher provided their subjectivity statement to be transparent with any biases that the researcher holds as the instructor that would be conducting the study. The research was peer-reviewed to allow other professionals to offer feedback and accuracy. The audit trail will allow for information to be confirmed and documentation checked for accuracy. The researcher will use triangulation to collect data from multiple sources to objectively understand and interpret the study's findings. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And feel free to watch any of the other related videos.